This happened during spring break of my junior year in college. And looking back now, I realize some places aren't just empty. They feel abandoned. Me and my three closest friends, Kevin, Ally, and Seb, decided to go car camping in Colorado. We had been doing trips like this since freshman year. But that semester we were all pretty broke. So instead of paying for a proper campground, we went for dispersed camping. I found a spot on one of those camping apps that listed free sites. It was somewhere outside Buena Vista, hidden deep along a Forest Service road that seemed to stretch on forever. The deeper we drove, the more it felt like we were leaving everything and everyone behind. By the time we arrived, it was late afternoon. We found a small clearing near what looked like an old creek bed. It was completely dried up, but you could tell water had once rushed through there. The place felt off, too quiet, too still. There were no other campers, no voices, not even fresh tire tracks. It was like no one had been there for a long time, or like no one wanted to be. At first, the place felt perfect, exactly the kind of isolated vibe we were looking for. Quiet, hidden, untouched, almost too perfect. We set up our tents in a loose circle, each one about 15 feet apart. Nothing organized, nothing planned, just wherever the ground looked flat enough and didn't have too many rocks. It was simple, casual, normal. That night is kind of a blur now. I think we just sat around, drank a few beers, played some cards, tried to enjoy the silence. But looking back, that silence feels different in my memory, heavier, like something was just watching us from beyond the dark. We were all exhausted from the long drive, so by around 11, everyone just went off to their own tents. No late-night conversations, no jokes, just an unusual eagerness to sleep. And that's when things started to feel wrong. I remember falling asleep almost instantly, which never happens to me. I'm a very light sleeper. Even in my own bed, I wake up multiple times from the cold, from random noises, for no reason at all. And on camping trips, it's even worse. Every little sound pulls me awake. But that night, it was different. I didn't wake up once. It felt like I had been completely knocked out, like something had forced me into a deep, unnatural sleep. When I woke up the next morning, something felt wrong immediately. Not loud, not obvious, just this quiet, sinking feeling in my chest, like something had changed while we were asleep. I unzipped my tent, expecting fresh mountain air, but the second I looked outside, I froze. It didn't take a second to notice. All 4 of our tents had been moved. Not torn, not dragged, not messed with like an animal got into them. They were relocated, carefully, precisely. They were now placed in a perfect square, surrounding a pile of stones that wasn't there the night before. For a moment, I genuinely thought I was still dreaming. That's how unreal it looked, like my brain just couldn't process what I was seeing. Each tent had been shifted at least 20, maybe 30 feet from where we originally set them up. But that wasn't even the worst part. The stakes were still driven perfectly into the ground, like they had never been pulled out. Nothing was loose. Nothing looked disturbed. I quickly checked inside my tent, then checked again and again. Everything was exactly where I left it. My sleeping bag, untouched. My phone, still plugged into my charger. All my gear, perfectly in place. Nothing was missing, which somehow made it even worse, because whatever did this wasn't trying to take anything. It just moved us. For a second, I genuinely thought I was losing my mind. I started yelling, calling out to everyone, my voice shaking more than I expected. Kevin was the first to crawl out of his tent, and the moment he looked around, I knew. I didn't have to say a word. The look on his face said everything, the same confusion, the same quiet panic. A few seconds later, Ally and Seb came out too. I watched their expressions shift as they took in the scene, one by one. Shock, confusion, fear. None of us remembered anything. No sounds, no movement, nothing from the night before. But then Ally spoke up, her voice a little distant, like she wasn't fully there. She said she had this incredibly vivid dream about walking in a straight line through some endless desert, while someone or something was counting her steps out loud. Then Kevin slowly nodded and said he had a dream too. He described marching, like he was in the army, walking in perfect rhythm beside other soldiers, step after step, like he didn't have control over his own body. Seb and I didn't remember dreaming at all, but that somehow made it worse. Because even though the details were different, the feeling behind those dreams was the same. Controlled, directed, like they weren't really dreams, but instructions. The atmosphere between us shifted after that. It's hard to explain, but it felt like we were all connected somehow. Not in a comforting way, but in something darker. Like we were all tuned into the same frequency without choosing to be. We barely needed to speak. It felt like we already knew what the others were thinking. And whatever had happened that night, it didn't feel over. I kept looking back and forth between them, trying to understand what I was actually feeling. It wasn't just fear. It was something else. Something I couldn't explain. The closest I can describe it is this. It felt like there was a fifth presence with us, not standing somewhere in the distance, but right there, watching, and somehow inside all of us at the same time. We started searching the campsite more carefully, hoping to find anything that could make sense of what had happened. Kevin tried to brush it off at first, suggesting maybe we'd just gotten too drunk and somehow moved everything ourselves. But that idea fell apart almost instantly. We found marks in the dirt, long, clear drag lines, each one leading from where our tents originally were to where they had been moved. But that wasn't even the strangest part. The drag marks didn't go all the way. They stopped about 10 feet before each tent's final position, like something had dragged them halfway and then lifted them off the ground, carrying them the rest of the way, slowly, deliberately. And then there was the pile of stones in the center, 4 stones, stacked perfectly on top of each other, balanced in a way that didn't even look natural. Not random, not messy, intentional, like a marker, or worse, a signal. On its own, that pile of stones probably wouldn't have felt that strange. But in that moment, with everything else around us, it felt wrong. Kevin stepped closer to get a better look. As he leaned in, his foot slipped slightly, and he bumped into the stack, knocking it over. The stones fell to the ground with a dull, lifeless sound. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud. For a second, all 4 of us just stood there in silence, staring at the scattered rocks. And then, everything changed. At the exact same moment, all of us heard it. A low, deep, rumbling sound, coming from somewhere far off in the distance. It didn't sound like thunder. It didn't sound like an earthquake. It sounded like stone, grinding against stone, like something ancient, heavy, was being forced open after being shut for a very long time. That sound hit something inside us, and without saying a single word, we all started packing up. No discussion, no hesitation. It was like we were thinking the same thought, feeling the same fear at the exact same time. I could feel their panic, and somehow, I knew they could feel mine too. It was overwhelming, way worse than anything we had felt just moments before. We packed faster than I thought was even possible, throwing things together, barely checking anything, just trying to leave. Realistically, we were out of there in under 5 minutes. But in that moment, it felt like forever, like something was getting closer with every second we stayed. I don't like thinking about what happened out there. Even now, it doesn't feel like a real memory. More like a nightmare that never fully left me. And I'm scared that if I think about it too much, it might start to feel real again. That was 5 years ago. We all went our separate ways after college. Kevin moved to Denver. Allies in grad school in California. Seb ended up in Chicago. We still keep in touch sometimes. But there's one thing we've never talked about again that night. It's like we all silently agreed to forget. Or maybe we're just too scared to remember.